Hey, it's Matt O'Leary, and it's time for New Music Monthly, where I cover a number of new releases, my favorites, and my most anticipated albums from the past month or so. This time we got a bunch of stuff from very lesser-known artists in alternative rock, indie rock, pop, and prog. These videos take a longer time to collect my thoughts, to write some thoughts, to record, to edit, to everything involved just is time consuming, and they don't really trip the algorithm in a way that some big time artists would, but I really love doing them. And if I were watching a channel, I would want something like this where I'm revealing new stuff that you may not have heard of. And I just get the most rewarding conversations with people through these videos as well. So I want to keep doing them, and I hope you get something out of it. Hope you enjoy. First up is one of my favorite albums of the year so far from a guy whose last album really disappointed me after 2019's fantastic Your Wilderness Revisited. And that is William Doyle with his new one, Springs Eternal. This is synth pop from a distinctly English singer-songwriter. He's got a very bright, very song-focused style. This is not a mood piece. Art rock or art pop is probably the best descriptor, carried by Doyle's tuneful tenor. He's very direct and very economical with his note choices. He can really tickle the ear. Like on Now in Motion, which really brings to mind the band Field Music. Or the other obvious single, Surrender Yourself, which is like a very optimistic and more joyful Radiohead. Just a super fun track. I love the kind of internet age sea shanty energy of Soft to the Touch. Or those vocal lines in Eternal Spring. The album's called Springs Eternal. The song's called Eternal Spring. Really reminds me of like C. Duncan from Scotland, that singer-songwriter, kind of that Baroque pop style. So if you like C. Duncan, then you'll like this. The album can be very minimal at times, like the song Surrender Yourself, which just cuts right through me. But he also brings the full bag of tricks involved in a very lush art pop sort of production. So I don't think this album is going to shock anybody. I don't think it's like something totally new, but it's very well written and it really rewards deep listening. And I'm loving it. I can't wait to just keep diving into the themes on this one, which touch on all sorts of stuff, but kind of hyper reality. And yeah, it's just really interesting stuff. Number 2 today is a new band from Norway, which is really just a hotbed for alternative rock and prog these days. My goodness. Mesa Verde cites Yes and Zeppelin and the Buggles and Tame Impala as influences. So I'm like, where do I sign up? There isn't the raw power of Zeppelin on this thing, but what you get instead is this very synth-heavy prog pop sound with some succulent vocal harmonies. Very smooth, very easy on the ears, but challenging at times with the writing and the structure, but never like biting or edgy. I hear a bit of that synth pop and that 80s influence on the song Pickings for the Beast, which is kind of the pop banger here. 2 other touch points that I hear in their sound are a really unknown band called Earthquake Lights. They were my album of the year back in 2019, and that silky jazziness of songs like Endurance or Moments really sounds like Earthquake Lights. And another are their Norwegian contemporaries, Motorpsycho, heavily based on the accent. The Norwegian accent singing English is just really recognizable. I think vocals and vocal melodies are something that hold this album back a little bit, but the overall production, the sound, the palette, the instrumental palette is just so strong that I'm really excited about what's next for this band, Mesa Verde. And they get a little extra prog cred because their guitarist plays with a double necked with the 12-string and the 6-string. The next artist was once on the skyrocketing rise with the band Alabama Shakes, really the biggest band in indie rock there for a moment. She's pulled out all the stops here for her second solo album, What Now? Brittany Howard is a powerhouse. She has achieved so much with only 4 albums between Alabama Shakes and her solo records. More Grammy awards than actual albums. It's a promising sign, depending on how you see the Grammys, but whatever. The title track here, What Now, packs a serious punch with that compressed, thick beat and those sleek guitars, which perfectly complement the very caustic but also thoughtful breakup lyrics from Howard. One of the best moments on this record for me is like right at the end of the song, What Now, you get this bell tower sound and it just transitions so perfectly into the very chilly electronics of Red Flags. It's just a perfect example of sequencing. This is a conflicting record for me because on one hand, I'm not in love with the songs, with the songwriting, but I think every single sonic decision she makes, every production decision, approach, style, all those type of things, it just sounds gorgeous, like sounds beautiful. And it's fun to listen to because of that, because it's just like always like, whoa, what are you doing? Okay, Brittany Howard, let's go. Her voice pairs amazingly with the loungy electro jazz of Samson or that 4 on the Floor dance track, Prove It to You. It's such a cool and just fresh sounding record. The production is so top notch. So just on that alone, this is a strong recommendation. And speaking of a pristinely produced record, this next one is from the UK electronic, experimental rock, pop. I don't even know really what to call them. It's everything. Mountainhead has that typical quality of everything that's just infinitely re-listenable. It's so smooth, it's so easy, it's so inoffensive but cool. I could just have it on at any time in any situation. The big difference for me so far on Mountainhead is that a lot of these songs are 7, 8 out of 10s, not the like standout 10 out of 10s from past albums like Teletype or Night of the Long Knives or Regret or Violent Sun from Reanimator. There aren't those huge highlights for me, and there also isn't anything too surprising from the band. I will say that kind of pizzicato orchestral bass on the song TV Dog was really surprising and caught my ear. The orchestral stabs on Madstone are another fun production moment and just quintessentially Jonathan Higgs, who I've said it before is one of the best voices out there in just all of music. All in all, it's another super solid record for me, maybe a 7, an 8 out of 10 from one of the best bands in the business. This band does not miss. From the very sleek and modern everything, kind of critical, to the anachronistic and the romantic, this next album is from one of the all-time greats in progressive rock. Steve Hackett has 16,000 albums, and this album is another Steve Hackett album. But I say that in the most adoring, the most appreciative way possible, because Steve is one of those rare birds who can continue innovating and just pumping out quality some 50 years into his career. And The Circus and the Night Whale is one of his best in years. I loved the album Under the Mediterranean Sky from 2021, but that was a completely different album, very instrumental, very classically oriented. And this one is more like a personal mission statement that holds up these two archetypes from old stories. On one hand, you got the circus, which symbolizes transgression and celebration of the outsider and ecstasy, and the night whale, the circus and the night whale, which is a little more vague symbolically, but you could think of it like an opportunity for rebirth, as you're humbled and swallowed in the belly of the whale and hopefully spit out. And you could see both of these forces in Steve's life and his journey and his story. And the music is just so good that I want to keep exploring that story. Hackett channels bygone eras with some classically informed moments, some 70s love as usual, some smoky cabaret jazz, which is a style that I think does wonders for Steve's voice, which is otherwise pretty forgettable. Get Me Out sounds like a Deer Hunter track from like The Axe, but with this blistering guitar solo that really shows off Steve's one-of-a-kind creative voice. Enter the Ring is probably my favorite song here, which has a very familiar Genesis sound. It's ornate, it's romantic, it has so many chords, like so many chords. I love it. We got some more whiplash on this next pick. We're going from Steve Hackett to Kacey Musgraves. That is what you call range, folks. I just can't help myself with some sumptuous pop country tracks like Happy Sad, like Slow Burn from 2018's Golden Hour. They were just ear candy. And Deeper Well goes back to the Golden Hour well, this time with a more banal, nature-worshipping, spirit of the age kind of worldview. Not vibing with Western religion, but with a real soft spot for some crystals and astrology. But musically, Deeper Well's got this gorgeous back-to-basics folk approach that I can really get behind. It reminds me of like Beck's Morning View from 2014. Cardinal is a great opening track with that woozy 12-string arpeggiation and some subtle synth beds. The piano on Dinner with Friends, the ELO-esque robot vocal harmonies on Anime Eyes are some textural moments that really get me. I mean, she just has some very tasteful, gorgeous production on all her music. Anime Eyes is really an electric light orchestra track for the 21st century. You know, all it's missing is some cello to really put it over the top. This is an extremely pleasant album with some brief moments of great songwriting too, you know, an unexpected chord change here and there. Nothing super special, but very enjoyable, very pretty. Next up is a band that really typifies breezy jangle pop and has been the most steadfast act in that genre for 15 years. Real Estate's Daniel is their 6th album and really well-trodden territory for the band, blending country flourishes and surf rock, a little bit of 90s pop rock in there as well, like Jason Faulkner, but not as special as Jellyfish. Real Estate's greatest strength, a lot like Everything Everything, is just being infinitely listenable. Like you could stream their whole discography in a morning and have a pretty pleasant time. But that's also their greatest weakness, you know, being a little too pleasant, and you could listen through their whole discography and totally forget you were listening at all. They don't take too many sonic or production risks, but I always appreciate how this band prioritizes melody and songcraft. Daniel is another consistent but very predictable listen that you'll like if you like this kind of music. But I prefer their albums Atlas or In Mind, especially In Mind, which I don't think got super great reviews at the time, but I think it's their best album by a country mile. So if you like this kind of music, I'll take this opportunity for this new album to recommend In Mind, which is great. You can probably tell I'm battling a cold here. I got a seriously dwindling voice, so I'm going to cut it for today, but we'll cover a bunch of new albums next month. I'm looking at some albums to review as well, kind of retrospectively looking back at the MGMT album after a month, since it is such kind of a grower type of album. Hoping to go back to Glass Beach at some point. Also Adrienne Lenker, a couple others coming up soon, so hopeful reviews there. And as always, thank you so much for watching.